Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our webinar. It looks like there's still a few people who are jumping on, but I think I'll go ahead and get started with the opening session, and then Autumn should be ready to go in just a minute. So thank you for joining us. Maybe if I can get this to go. There we go. We are Mission West Virginia, and we lead a statewide effort to promote positive futures for all kids in West Virginia. We work alongside families as they navigate West Virginia's foster care system and provide evidence-based life skills education to help teens envision and create positive futures. As a result of our work, putting kids first in collaboration with social services, school districts, private foster care agencies, and other nonprofits, the future looks brighter for West Virginia. So we have two programs primarily that we here at Mission West Virginia. The first is Frameworks, and it provides support for those interested in foster care or kinship care. It helps them to understand the system, find a placement agency, and prepare to make a difference in the life of a child. If you are interested in fostering, to learn more about how to become a foster and or adoptive parent in West Virginia, then you can call our office, 866-CALL-MWV, or call 304-512-0555. We will put you in touch with Cheryl, and she is just a wealth of information. She'll be happy to help you out. The Think program empowers teens to make positive life choices through education, life skills, and coaching. Our program is evidence-based and helps the students we work with navigate the social emotional pressures all teens face as they develop. This includes building healthy relationships and healthy choices around drugs and alcohol and pregnancy prevention. So we deliver our program in partnership with schools in 20 counties. We're vetted by district leaders, teachers, and other school leaders who are trained to work with kids. The program is evidence-based curriculum, has been shown to have a positive effect on preventing teen pregnancies, sexually transmitted infections, or sexual risk behaviors. Our educators are continually trained on the most up-to-date information on trauma, sexual health, and high-risk behaviors. Our management team does on-site observations of our educators regularly so that fidelity is being followed. We also administer pre- and post surveys, receive teacher feedback, hold team focus groups, and site satisfaction surveys. We also host workshops and trainings, kind of like this one. So talking to youth about sensitive or hard topics, hidden in plain sight, trauma, sexual assault prevention and consent, teen dating violence, and much more. We can pretty much do anything revolving around teens or high-risk behavior prevention, mental health. CEUs today, they are offered for social work by Mission West Virginia. The provider number is included here, so 4 and then 99999, 1.5 contact hours for this webinar. In order to receive a certificate, please be in attendance during the live session. We will verify your attendance through the Zoom attendance log. We will also be sending out a survey. If you could complete that, we would appreciate it to see how we're doing. Your CEU certificate will be processed sometime over the next week. If you don't receive it, please contact Becky at rwhite@missionwv.org. So now to introduce Autumn. Autumn's our youth support liaison here at Mission West Virginia. She has a bachelor's and a master's degree in social work from the University of Akron and is an LICSW in West Virginia. In her position, Autumn works closely with students who identify a need for resources or community referrals. She also provides education on numerous topics and acts as a bridge of support for students needing a trusted adult to speak with and help them work through any difficult situations they may be experiencing. So Autumn, thank you very much. We appreciate you. And I'm going to hand this on over.
Thank you. My goodness, my hair is so short in that picture. I kind of miss it short. So thank you everybody for joining today's webinar. We all know that bullying is such a big issue, and it's not just something that's here in West Virginia. Unfortunately, this is something that is nationwide. So let me go ahead and get my PowerPoint pulled up and share it with y'all. All right, there we go. So today we are going to be talking about bullying and the suicidal risks that come from bullying. So when we look at what bullying it is, it's really just unwanted aggressive behavior, and it has this perceived balance of power. So when we look at that imbalance of power, that can look different ways. So some examples, some of that imbalance of power can be used, such as physical strength. So that, when they may physically assault another student. It could be access to embarrassing information or popularity. And they may also do it to control or harm other people. So when we look at those different types of imbalances, it can change over time and in different situations, even if it involves the same people who are doing the bullying. So, depending on who they are bullying, they may use, the popularity to kind of have control over that other person. And then another student, they may, do the physical strength. So it's not just you know, um, a person that's bullying says, okay, I'm just going to use my popularity. So that can change, even if it involves the same people. So when we talk about bullying, it is usually repeated over time. And even if it's like a one-time thing that happened, it does put that situation at a higher risk to continue to be repeated over time. And we also know that people who experience bullying have serious, long-lasting problems from that. But the other thing too is people who do the bullying can also have long-lasting problems from those experiences as well. So when we look at the different types of bullying that we have, so our first one would be verbal. So this would be saying or writing mean things. So it could be teasing somebody for whatever reason. It could be because of their appearance, or they're not wearing the popular clothes or trends or anything like that. It could be calling them names. It could be inappropriate sexual comments. So when we talk about sexual harassment, that definitely is a part of bullying. It could be taunting them and also making threats to cause harm. We also have social bullying. So this can also be called relational bullying. And really, this involves hurting other people's reputations and their relationships with their peers. So some examples of social bullying could be leaving somebody out on purpose to make them feel bad. It could be telling other people not to be friends with someone. And I've seen this a lot with students who go to a new school. When they're a new student, they just want to find somebody that they feel that they can connect with, so they don't feel so isolated. And, depending on how this new student looks, or, how they act, it's common for people that are, from other populations or cliques per se, go and say, you don't want to be friends with them. They'll ruin your reputation. They're nerds. They're, whatever. Spreading rumors about other people, and then also embarrassing somebody in public. Physical bullying involves hurting a person's body or their possessions. So some examples could be hitting, kicking, or pinching. It could be spitting on them, tripping them, or pushing them. It could be taking any of their personal belongings and breaking them, and also making mean or rude hand gestures. Cyberbullying is a huge, huge problem. The majority of my students that I work with have experienced cyberbullying more often than bullying in person. So when we look at cyberbullying, this can take place over any type of electronic device, including phones, computers, tablets. This could be done through text messages, social media, different online forums, and also online gaming. So some examples of cyberbullying may be sending, posting, or sharing negative, false, or mean content about somebody. It could be sharing personal or private information about somebody else that could cause them to be embarrassed or humiliated. And sometimes cyberbullying crosses the line into unlawful and criminal behavior. And so this goes along more so with the sexting or sending nude photographs. Every state has its own law when it comes to sexting and nude photos. In West Virginia, they made it a law that anybody under the age of 13 They could be charged, I'm sorry, not 13, under the age of 16, they can be charged, with a misdemeanor for sending or receiving nude photos or sexting. But really, when we look at the consequences of those, they will typically, depending on the person or the child's situation, if they've not been in trouble before, they kind of have a program that they can attend. And if they complete that program, then they can get that removed off of their record. So when we look at where people are being cyberbullied, Twitter is about 9%, which truthfully, I'm not surprised. Not too many young people are on Twitter as often as some of our other social media apps. YouTube, about 10% of youth experience cyberbullying. WhatsApp, about 12% experience cyberbullying. And so if you're not familiar of WhatsApp, it's basically just a communication app. So if you think of like our cell phones, we have where we text people. WhatsApp is its own separate app that you can text, you can make phone calls and video chat with other people. And so it's a really great way for young people to interact with others. And maybe their parents or guardians don't necessarily know about that app. So then, they can hide messages or pictures or things on that. So Snapchat, we have a big jump from the first three to our next three. So Snapchat, about 31% experience cyberbullying. Facebook experiences, or 37% experience it on Facebook, which truthfully, I was a little shocked by that because I know a lot of my students tell me that they either don't have a Facebook account, or they don't get it on it often. They have since, shared with me that Facebook is for old people. And I'm like, watch it now. I'm not old. I don't have Facebook, but, I'm trying to look out for us adults out there. And then Instagram. Instagram has the highest rate of youth experiencing cyberbullying at 42%. So when we look at the impacts that our youth face when it comes to cyberbullying, we know that there is nothing good that comes from it. So 9% started abusing alcohol and drugs as a result of cyberbullying. 14% developed an eating disorder. 20% started skipping class. 24% stopped using social media altogether. And truthfully, we think that may not necessarily be such a bad idea, if they just stopped using social media. But the problem is that young generation, they rely on social media and technology to interact with their other peers. And so what we really don't want them to do is to, completely isolate themselves. And so that's why I always, talk with my youth that, sometimes we need a break from social media, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you find that can be a helpful way to connect with your peers, where you're not experiencing, bad things, then there's really nothing wrong with using social media. 25% engaged in self-harm. 26% deleted their social media profiles. 26% had suicidal thoughts. 37% developed depression, and 41% developed social anxiety. So when we take a look at who is at risk for being bullied, really bullying doesn't discriminate. It can happen to anybody, regardless of their age, their gender, their race, their sexual orientation, their religion, their socioeconomic status, the way that they look or dress. It can happen to everyone. But there are certain groups that, through research they've identified, puts people at a higher risk for being bullied. And so those who are disabled may be at a higher risk to be exposed to bullying. Gender. So gender can play a really big role, depending on how they identify, and, and especially what I have seen is with females. It's more common for them to bully versus with social media and online. And with males, it's more common for them to do it more face-to-face. And the physical bullying is something that's more common with males. Poverty. So if we have young people that have a family that is struggling financially, they may not be able to afford all the things that are trending right now for them to wear. And so they may have to wear hand-me-downs or clothes that may be kind of tattered or have some holes in them, or, things like that, and they could be bullied. And also social status. So, in some situations, if you are not part of the popular crowd, then, you may be at a higher risk to be bullied. Also, ethnic and cultural differences. I see that a lot, unfortunately. If people don't appear to look like everybody else, that can put them at risk. Physical parents, that plays a huge role as far as bullying goes. So if somebody doesn't look a certain way that, is supposed to make somebody, be attractive, or if they appear overweight, or if they are, very underweight. So based on their physical appearance, that can put them at risk. And then also individuals that identify part of the LGBTQ plus can also put them at risk to experience bullying. And a lot of that has to do with because of how they identify, because it may be different than what other people, depending on how they identify. So when we look at the youth that are at risk for bullying, so youth that are at risk, they're perceived as different from their peers, regardless of their appearance. It could be wearing clothes that aren't trending. It could be being a new student at a school, or not being able to afford things that kids think is cool. And truthfully, I have a hard time keeping up with that. I feel like my real age shows when I work with my kids because, just when I think I've got their lingo down, when I try to fit in and I may say something and they just kind of give me that look like I'm old. So it's really hard to keep up with that. If they're perceived as weak, if they're unable to defend themselves, if a youth is already experiencing mental health concerns, such as depression or anxiety, or if they just have a low self-esteem, if they are less popular than others and they have few friends. One thing that I always tell my youth, when we look at friends, I always say what's important, it's about the quality of the friendship and not the quantity. So you can have a popular student that has 100 friends, and if they ever needed something, none of them would be there for them. But the person that has the fewer friends, if they really needed somebody, they know that they can count on that person. And also if they don't get along with others. So if we have students that come off as being annoying, or they antagonize other people for attention, or try to, stir up some emotions with other kids, those kids can also be at risk for bullying as well. All right. So when we look at youth that are more likely to bully other people, so there are two types of youth that are more likely to bully others. So the first one is we have the youth that are well connected with their peers. So they're part of the popular crowd. They have that social power. They're pretty much concerned about their popularity. They will do anything and everything to make sure that they keep that status within the school. And another trait is they may like to dominate other people, or they like to be in charge. Now, the other type of youth that are more likely to bully others is the complete opposite of the first one I just mentioned. So these may be youth that are more likely to isolate themselves from their peers. They may appear to be depressed, anxious, or have a low self-esteem. So they're less involved in school activities. So you never see them at any games or dances or any type of extracurricular activities. They may be easily pressured by their peers, and they have a really hard time identifying with the emotions and feelings of other people. So we kind of think of the really quiet student that just keeps to themselves. You never see them eating lunch with anybody or socializing with anyone. They just kind of keep to themselves. So some other factors that could play a role with youth that are more likely to bully. So they may be aggressive or easily frustrated. There could be less parental involvement in their lives, or there's issues at the home. They may think badly of other people, so they lack that empathy, to connect with other people and their emotions. They have troubles following rules, so they may get in trouble more often at school. They may view violence in a positive way, and so we see this a lot with youth that grew up in environments that they were subjected to witnessing violence, or maybe they were even a victim of abuse or violence in their own home. And then also they may have friends who bully other people. So if you are friends with somebody that is bullying others, you may feel pressured to jump in on that because you don't want to lose that person as a friend. And you certainly don't want to become the next person that they may start to bully because you think what they're doing is wrong. So these are some signs that a youth may be being bullied. So first and foremost, there could be unexplained injuries. So if we have a youth that's going home and they have, some cuts or scratches or bruises, and every time, an adult asks them about it, they quickly have an excuse. It was, oh, I ran into the corner of a desk, or I tripped and fell. So they always have an excuse for these injuries that, appears on their body. Their clothing, books, electronics, jewelry, any of their personal belongings may be lost or stolen or also destroyed. They may complain of psychosomatic issues. And so psychosomatic really is when a person is experiencing physical symptoms and there's really no physiological explanation as to why they would have those. So they're constantly saying they have headaches or stomach aches, or they may be feeling sick. Sometimes they may fake being sick just so they don't have to go home or go to school. This might be a student that is always in the nurse's station because of something that they're complaining about hurting or not feeling well. There could be changes in their eating habits. So if somebody is being bullied for their appearance, so say if somebody's being bullied because they appear overweight, they may all of a sudden start skipping meals, always saying, I'm not hungry, or they may not eat when they're at school. Or if they appear to be underweight, they may binge eat because they're trying to gain weight. And then the other thing too is when we look at the emotional consequences of bullying, that can create some depression and anxiety. And so we know that when a person is dealing with depression or anxiety, changes in their eating habits can definitely happen. And same with the next one. So there could be changes in their sleep patterns. They may have trouble sleeping, or they may have nightmares of the bullying that they're experiencing at school. There could be a change in their behaviors when it comes to school. So maybe they were a pretty good student, A's, B's, C's, and now all of a sudden it's D's, F's, and really no explanation as to why they have those low grades. They just may lose this overall interest in school or just don't want to go to school at all. They may also have a sudden loss of friends, or they may avoid any type of social situation. And so the loss of friends could be a number of reasons. So it could be because of that social bullying or relational bullying, where the person bullying has convinced this person's friends to stop being their friend. But it could also be that the person experiencing the bullying is self-isolating. And so, as a result, maybe their friends kind of just dropped off because this person wasn't connecting with them anymore. There can also be feelings of hopelessness and also a decreased self-esteem. And they can also engage in self-destructive behaviors. So they may run away from home. They may start engaging in self-harm. They may shoplift, and they may also start talking about suicide. So signs that youth are bullying other people. So if they are constantly getting into physical or verbal fights with others, or if they have friends that are well known to be bullies to other people. If they are increasingly aggressive. So if they become, aggressive or kind of snap at the drop of a dime, just becoming very easily agitated or angry. If they're going to the principal's office frequently or getting detentions or in-school suspensions because of their behaviors. If all of a sudden they start having unexplained extra money or new belongings that, you as a parent or guardian know that Okay, well, they didn't do chores. They don't have a job. Why do they have this money? And also these belongings that you did not purchase them or purchase for them. So one thing that I always talk about with the unexplained extra money, the one thing too is just because a youth may be having these signs doesn't always mean that they are being bullied or they are bullying others, but these are more common in those situations. So with having that unexplained extra money, I will share with you, because my students have shared with me in numerous schools that they are making money in school, and they're doing this by, they call it Nick hits. And so what they are doing is they are taking vapes to school, and they will sell a hit to a student for $3, $4, $5. So a student will pay $4 to take one hit off of a vape. And I know some of my students have said that they know people that have made like 40 or 50 bucks in a week. And so we do talk about that. And we also talk about how that's just, number one, they shouldn't be having those vapes in schools. They aren't even legal to have them at their age. And number two, that's gross. Like, how many people's mouths have been on these vapes? So it's just important to know that there could be other explanations for these signs other than that they may be bullying other people. They may constantly blame others for their problems. So again, we have that lack of empathy. It's always everybody else's fault. The world is out to get them, and that they are the true victim. They don't take responsibility for their own actions. And then if they're very competitive and they're always worried about their reputation and popularity, and they kind of maintain this idea that they will do whatever they can to make sure that they keep that popularity or to continue the reputation that they do have in school. So these are just some different facts on cyberbullying and bullying in general. I'm not going to go over every single one of these. I will tell you that at the end, I will have my email address on there. So if you are interested in receiving these PowerPoint slides, all you have to do is send me an email and I'll be more than happy to send that. So when we look at cyberbullying, 43% of kids have been bullied online, and 1 in 4 has had it happen more than once. 70% of students report seeing frequent online bullying. 80% of teens use a cell phone regularly. So again, this makes it the most common medium for cyberbullying to take place. And almost 70% of teens believe that cyberbullying is a serious problem. When we look at, there is one, like maybe it's on a different one. Oh, this one. So 90% of teens who have seen social media bullying, they completely ignore it. They don't say anything. They don't speak up and say what they're doing is wrong. But 84% have seen others tell cyberbullies to stop. So when we look at some of the other ones, almost 160,000 teens skip school every day because of bullying. 67% of students believe schools respond poorly to bullying. Every 7 minutes, a child is being bullied. And 85% of bullying cases receive no intervention. Unfortunately, I hear that a lot from some of my students that have experienced bullying. They say that they've talked to so-and-so, they've done this, and nothing is done about that. And, whether or not that's true, it's not the first time that I've heard something like that. So when we look at how bullying can impact youth, so youth who are experiencing bullying, we mentioned this before, so they can experience some mental health problems, such as depression, anxiety, increased feelings of sadness and loneliness, changes in their sleep patterns and their eating. The things that they used to love to do, maybe they could care less about doing those things. So you notice that maybe they were real big into, maybe they were in band and they loved a band, and now all of a sudden they're like, I don't want to do it anymore. And they can't really give you a good explanation as to why they're not doing these things that they love to do. We have those psychosomatic complaints again. So they're always complaining of headaches or stomach aches or just overall not feeling well. And maybe they go to a doctor and they get blood work done and everything comes back normal. There could be that decline in their academic achievement and school participation. And youth that experience bullying are more likely to miss, skip, or drop out of school. And a very small number of bullied children might retaliate through extremely violent measures. In 12 of 15 school shooting cases in the 90s, the shooters had a history of being bullied. So we always worry about, when it comes to the safety of our children and, especially with school shootings, because we hear about it all the time. It's a small number, but it can happen. And I'm not saying that turning to violence like that is the answer, because obviously it is definitely not. But we can see that our young people, when they are experiencing bullying to a certain degree, sometimes we never know what could happen with them or what they will do, what measures they will take in order for that bullying to stop. So looking at impact on youth who bully other people. So they may engage in violent and other risky behaviors clear into their adulthood. They may abuse alcohol and other drugs as a teen and also as an adult. They can get in fights. They may vandalize property or drop out of school. They may engage in early sexual activity. They may have criminal convictions or any type of traffic citations as adults. And they may also be abusive towards their romantic partners, their spouses, or even their children once they become an adult. And so when we look at what a bully looks like, sometimes I've talked to students about this, what do you think a bully looks like? Because when we look at, movies and TV shows of people that are portraying bullies, it's always, the popular student. It's always the cheerleader or the star quarterback football player. And so when I talk with my students about that, I try to have them think of what they think a bully looks like. But when it comes down to it, a bully can look like anybody. There is no such thing as, only a certain look, qualifies a person to bully other people. So they can be short, tall, they could be funny, they could be a straight A student, and they can really, bully other people. So we always talk to the youth about how they have to keep that in mind, just because they may have this idea of what they think a bully looks like, they may be a person that's bullying other people, but they don't necessarily realize it because they have this idea, well, I don't portray or fit this crowd or this look, so I can't possibly be a bully. So it's important to make sure that youth understand that when it comes to somebody who bullies others, it could be anybody. So when we look at the impact of youth, so bystanders, sometimes we get so focused on individuals who are experiencing bullying and the ones who are doing the bullying that we forget about the youth who are witnessing this. And they have found that youth who witness bullying can definitely be impacted by just, seeing it. So they may have an increased use of tobacco, drugs, or alcohol. They can also have an increased risk of developing mental health problems such as depression or anxiety. And they may also miss or skip school. So when we look at the relationship between bullying and suicide, so we know that bullying can put somebody at a higher risk of suicidal thoughts or attempts. But they have found that bullying alone is not a single cause of suicide. And youth who bully other people, they're also at risk of attempting or completing suicide as well. So when we look at the other issues that can contribute to that suicidal risk, that could be depression and other mental health problems. It could be problems that they're having at home, or maybe they're having family conflict. There could be a history of trauma that maybe they, have never worked through or never even told anyone about. And so when they experience that bullying, it just builds up. If they're abusing alcohol or any other type of substances, if they've had a recent or serious loss in their life. So that could be the death of a loved one, a friend, a pet, if the parents are going through a divorce or separation, or the end of a romantic relationship, or even a really good friendship. When I talk with my students about grief, they always think that you can only grieve that is or the only time a person grieves is when somebody passes away. But we also talk about how we can grieve when we have the end of some type of relationship, but it doesn't mean that that person has passed away. So if it was a breakup, or if you and your best friend that have been best friends for years, all of a sudden stop being friends, you can still grieve that. If they have a lack of social support. So if they don't have that good, healthy support, that can definitely put them at risk for suicide. And also the stigma associated with asking for help. That breaks my heart. It's 2023 and we still have this stigma when it comes to asking for help. And more so with youth that identify as males. There is even a bigger stigma that if you are a male and you ask for help, that's a sign of weakness. And so that's one thing I always encourage my youth, to make sure that there is help available, if you need help. And it's important to kind of build that into them that, there's nothing wrong with asking for help, that millions of people ask for help for many different things. And so it's definitely okay that if they're not feeling emotionally well, that they do ask for help. So this slide breaks my heart every time I do this presentation. These are all faces of beautiful kids that completed suicide. And again, we know that bullying isn't the sole cause of suicide, but these are all children that were being bullied by other people. And when I was doing my research and looking up stories, I could probably fill up another 2 slides of other kids' pictures that have taken their lives. And a lot of it, stemmed from bullying and mental health problems. So we think like, okay, well, if they're being bullied, they'll be fine, they'll get over it, they can, tough it out. But our youth they're really struggling when they're experiencing bullying. And so, when you think, well, some of our little kids, it'll be okay, they may be hurt for a bit, but they'll be all right. But these, I can't tell you how many. So there was this one, and this sweet boy here, and then this sweet girl here. But they were in elementary school when they completed suicide, and so we can't just assume, oh, well, because they're, little or they're a certain age that they would never even think about that or even know what that is. Because the truth is they do know what these things are, and they have access to all that information through technology and through the internet. There's actually a documentary. I can't remember what it's called, but I could always get it for you if you wanted to watch it. But this girl here, there's a documentary about her experience being bullied, and that ultimately led to her suicide. So when we look at, some youth who may be suicidal, so often, you hear people say, well, I didn't see it coming. I never saw anything wrong with them. And a lot of times too, it's because it's sometimes it can be difficult to identify. And the last thing I would ever want any person to do is to blame themselves for somebody who has completed suicide. But the truth is 4 out of 5 teens actually do display red flags of suicide before they attempt or complete. So some of those red flags, they may start talking about wanting to die or having just a lot of guilt or shame for who they are, or talking about being a burden to other people, especially their families. And I've seen this a lot in the stories and documentaries that I've watched and read, because like if, for example, that I see a lot, a student is experiencing bullying, and the family, the adults feel the school isn't being involved. And so the parents get involved or the guardians get involved. In turn, it makes the situation a lot worse for that person. And it creates a lot of family conflict because they don't know how to fix this problem. And so they often feel like they're being a burden to their families because it's creating a lot of arguments and dysfunction. Some other red flags, they may start feeling empty, hopeless. They may feel trapped. They may feel that suicide is the only way out. They may also feel that they have no reason left to live. They can also feel extremely sad, very anxious, or they can also be very agitated or even rageful. And they may also have unbearable emotional or physical pain. So some changes in the behaviors that can be red flags of suicide. They may start making plans or researching ways that they want to, how they want to do it. And unfortunately, those things exist online. It's sad. You can Google what is the least painful way to complete suicide, and you're going to get all those answers right there online. If they start withdrawing from friends, if they start giving away things that are important to them, and there's really no explanation. So maybe there was something meaningful to them and they just all of a sudden give it to their friend and they just say, well, I just wanted you to have it. If they start engaging in dangerous and risky behaviors. So, dangerous and risky behaviors can be lots of things. It could be, engaging in alcohol and drug use. It could be running away from home, shoplifting, vandalizing, high risk sexual behaviors. If they drive, they may drive recklessly. And a lot of times they'll engage in those risky and dangerous behaviors because they feel they have no will left to live. They could care less if they lived or died. So they're just going to do whatever they want to do and not worry about what those possible consequences are. They can have extreme mood swings, and that can be kind of tricky because a lot of times if we aren't familiar with these red flags or if we're not familiar with youth struggling with mental health, we look at these mood swings as teenagers, being teens. It's teen angst, it's hormones, they're all over the place. If they're having changes in their sleep and appetite, and if they are using drugs and alcohol more often. And that's the one thing too, when it comes to suicide and alcohol and drugs, more times than not, people who complete suicide typically will have either alcohol or drugs or maybe both in their system. And if you think about it, when somebody's under the influence, they aren't thinking about really anything. They're not thinking through, what could possibly happen? How will this impact everybody else? And so for people that I've worked with that have survived suicide attempts that were under the influence, they told me that it made the attempt a lot easier. It didn't make them second guess it when they were under the influence. So how can we look at or address a youth who may be suicidal? So we want to address depression, anxiety, or any other mental health concerns that we do have. If a youth, if they appear anxious or they feel like they're struggling, or you're noticing that something is just not, right with, they're not acting how they normally do, it is so important that we stop and ask them what's wrong and offer our help. We shouldn't wait around for youth to come to us first. There's lots of reasons. And if you think about it, there's lots of adults that, don't reach out for help first. It's always we're waiting for somebody to ask us. So we definitely want to make sure that we're approaching them if we notice that something is not right with them and asking them what's wrong. We also need to make sure that we're paying attention. So if a youth is thinking about suicide, they're most likely displaying some of those warning signs. So we want to make sure that we're listening to what they're saying and watch how they're acting. And we should never, ever, ever shrug off threats of suicide as them being dramatic or having that teen angst. I have talked with lots of adults who think that if a youth says that they're suicidal, they're doing it for attention. And the truth is they need that attention because there is no way that any person that is mentally and emotionally healthy is going to threaten suicide if there was truly nothing going on. So if anything, we think they're seeking attention, but they need attention. We need to try to discourage isolation, encourage them to spend time with those friends who are supportive and helpful for them, and also their family members as well. We want to make sure that we support the treatment plan. So if a youth is undergoing treatment for suicidal behavior, it's important that they know that it can take some time before they may start to feel better. We live in a world where we need that instant fix, that instant gratification. And I get that. I totally get that. When we're not feeling mentally and emotionally well, I need to feel better now. Don't tell me I got to wait another couple of weeks or months before I need to start feeling better. But that's just how it works. So it's important that we try to educate the youth and let them know that this is not going to be a quick fix, that it's going to take time. And that's what I tell the youth that I work with. So when they are struggling, when they say, well, I just want to feel better now. And then, and I validate that. I'm like, I totally understand that. I get that. But we talk, did it happen overnight? And most of them, it's no, it's been months or years of things that they have experienced that has brought them to where they're at today. So then we have to look at, okay, well, where you want to be and where you want to feel mentally and emotionally well, that is not going to happen overnight. But I always make sure that they know that they have my support, and I'm here to, be there for them, through that. I call it kind of a journey, because it really is. We also need to make sure to help them follow the doctor's recommendations, so if that includes them taking medications, ensuring that the youth is taking the medications as prescribed. And also too, if they have had suicidal thoughts or behaviors, we need to make sure that we're monitoring those medications. And then we want to try to encourage them to participate in activities that can help rebuild their confidence. So, when it comes to mental health and suicide and bullying, it can really crash that young person's level of confidence. And so we want to make sure that we're trying to have them do things to help build that back up. We also need to make sure that our firearms, alcohols, and medications are safely stored. Access to means plays a huge role in a youth that is already having those suicidal thoughts. And so with alcohol and medication, that's a big one, but also firearms. Here in West Virginia, the one thing that I learned moving here from Ohio, this is a big state that loves to hunt. I know lots of youth that have their own guns for hunting. So I know that there are lots of youth that can easily get access to firearms from family members or maybe friends. So we just need to make sure that we get those, safely stored. And, if you're trying to figure out like ways to do it, so there is, I think it's WV Prevent Suicide. Like when I've been to conferences, they actually offer firearm locks that they give out for free, so you can lock that gun up and it has a key with it too. So if you do have firearms but you don't have like a safe to store them, but you want to get those locks, you can always reach out, and I'm sure they would be able to provide some. So if a student comes to you or a youth comes to you and says that they are suicidal, it is okay to ask them if they have in the past, recently, if they're currently, if they have had thoughts or they're having a plan or intent to complete suicide. There are lots of people that are so afraid to use the word suicide because they feel, well, if I say that word, it's going to put that idea in their head. But I'm telling you that asking them or talking to them about suicide is not going to put that idea in their head, or it's not going to make them more suicidal. If anything, they have already had those thoughts long before, you even approach them about that. So another thing to talk to them about is protective factors. Ask them the things that they have in their life that they feel are worth living for. And this could be anything. This could be family, friends. It could be a pet. It could be a romantic partner, a job, values, morals. Protective factors play a huge role in keeping somebody safe when they are having suicidal thoughts. So it is so important to make sure that we are asking them and talking to them about what they feel keeps them going. And I've asked my youth if they've had thoughts of suicide, and I said, well, what are the things that you have that stopped you from acting acting out on those thoughts. Because sometimes I think they get so lost in those emotions that they don't realize the importance of the things that they have in their life that keep them going. So it kind of helps them to appreciate more, that they do have some of those protective factors. Also, too, if you think a youth is in immediate danger, do not hesitate to call 911, or you can call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. They recently changed it. It used to be a 1-800 number, but now all you have to dial is 988. And then you will be able to get help immediately. So if you are somebody who works in a school setting and a student reports that they are suicidal or having suicidal thoughts, it's going to be important to refer them to the school counselor or social worker and make sure that they follow through with the school's policies. After you've gained a better understanding of how that youth is feeling, please offer your emotional support. It's crazy to me with the youth that I work with. So there are times where I will go see some of my kids and they just talk nonstop, and I'm just there to validate them, offer that emotional support. And sometimes I'm like, well, is this even helping them, with what I do? And so, after a few times we meet, I like to do a check-in because I always tell them, if you don't feel my services are helping you, the best thing you can do is be honest and tell me, because my goal is to make sure that you are getting help and feeling better. And if I'm not doing that for you, I certainly want to get you to someone who may be able to do that. So I'll ask them and talk to them and be like, what do you think that this is helping you? And I will tell you, all of my students say the most helpful thing is that they are able to talk about whatever, and I am there and I'm listening to them, and I'm not judging them, and I'm not telling them what to do, and I'm supporting them. And so sometimes I think, that teens don't care about what adults, what they do, or, what we think about them, but they truly do. So sometimes if you just sit there and listen to them, that can be worth so much more than you would think it does. So we want to validate them by paraphrasing things that they're saying. That lets them know that we are listening to what they're saying. And it also helps us to make sure that we are on the same page as they are. Let them know that you are deeply concerned about their well-being. Calm and compassionately, tell them or say something like, I don't want you to hurt yourself, and I will do everything I can to keep you safe and to get you help. Try to gently inform them that suicide is not a solution. You can validate them, and you can validate why they may feel that way. Because if we just come out and say, that's a stupid idea, why would you do that? That's going to make them feel really bad. So we want to kind of validate and say, I can understand why you may feel the way that you do because of you experiencing this, and this. But it's so important to know that you matter, and suicide is not a solution that's going to solve these problems. So you can inform them that there's options for treatment, and discuss their thoughts on this. And then also provide them reassurance that you will do whatever it takes to help them get through that. So, if you have a youth that comes up and opens up to you about all of this, and maybe you help them to get into some kind of treatment or counseling or whatever the case is, make sure you stay in touch with that student. If you see them in the hallway or, wherever it is, ask them, hey, how are you doing? Don't let this be just like a one-time thing. And it's like, okay, I've got you off my list, and now I don't need to worry about you because you're seeing somebody else. But make sure that you continue to provide that reassurance and that support to them throughout this whole journey of their recovery. So ways that we can address bullying. So youth who understand and know what bullying is, they can better identify it. And so it's important that we try to encourage youth to speak to a safe adult if they're being bullied, or if they see others that are being bullied. We also want to encourage them to help others who are being bullied by showing kindness or getting help. And that can be really difficult for a young person if they, see someone that is getting bullied. And, of course, they may want to do the thing and step in and stop it right then and there. but that can also lead to consequences for that person trying to stop it. They may become the next person who gets bullied. So that's why a lot of youth don't do those things, because they do it out of fear. So if they are worried about that, in which I totally understand, then the best thing they can do is, get help from an adult right away. And then research shows that youth do look to adults for advice and help on difficult situations. So it's kind of what I was just talking about, that they don't look at us as just these old folks that don't know anything. They really do rely on the things that we share with them and the advice that we can give them, when it comes to any type of difficult situation. So spending 15 minutes a day talking can reassure youth that they can talk to adults if they have a problem. So sometimes starting conversations about daily life and feeling, you make that a part of the norm. That helps to break down that stigma. It helps to break down those barriers. So you may have conversations about, what does bullying mean to you? Or why do you think people bully other people? Have them identify adults that they feel safe, that they can go to when it comes to bullying. And really, that's just important for them to, to be able to identify a safe adult regardless of the situation. It is so important that youth have that safe adult that they feel that they can go to. And that's one thing I always talk with my kids about, and even though I act as a safe adult, we try to identify other people, especially, within maybe their families or also in school. You can also ask youth, what do you usually do when you see bullying going on? And have you ever seen kids at school being bullied, and how did it make you feel? So being able to have these open conversations can really, really help, start to address the issues that are going on when it comes to bullying. So when we look at supporting youth who are being bullied, so we want to make sure, we're listening and focusing on them. And we also need to make sure that the youth knows that the bullying that they're experiencing is not their fault. It's very common for youth to blame themselves, or even if it's a youth that likes to, annoy other people or antagonize, it doesn't matter what a child or teenager is doing. Nobody ever deserves to experience being bullied. And it's also important to know that youth may struggle to open up and talk about it. I have worked with some youth that are afraid to talk about it because they are afraid of the situation getting worse. So it makes it really difficult for them to open up and reach out to somebody, especially in a school setting, to say, hey, this is what's been going on. So you want to consider referring them to a school counselor, social worker, or maybe some other mental health provider. That can be really beneficial to help them to start opening up about what they're experiencing. And we do know that when we talk about those feelings and those emotions, it's going to hurt and suck at first, but we do know that with time and being able to talk about those things, it's allowing us to be able to get those off of our chest. And that's one of the best things that we can do for our youth. We definitely don't want them to be bottling things up inside, because we know when we do that for so long, there's going to come a time where it's just going to erupt and they may be even worse off. So we want to make sure that we're offering them some type of solution or some type of person that they can go and talk to, just to even release all of those emotions that they're experiencing from being bullied. Work together to resolve the situation and to protect the youth that's experiencing bullying. So ask them what they think can be done to make them feel safe. That they are the ones that are experiencing the bullying. So we can't just make these assumptions, well, we'll do A, B, and C and you'll be perfectly fine. Have them be a part of that plan and ask them, what do you think can be done to help you feel more safe? Changes in the youth that's being bullied, changes in their routine should be minimized. So if we are switching their school, their class schedules, different things like that, essentially they may think, well, this is my fault. Why am I being punished by having all of these changes when I didn't do anything? You also want to develop a game plan and maintain that open communication between the schools, organizations, and parents. Be persistent and consistently support that bullied youth, and make sure you're following up with them. And like I had mentioned before, maybe they're already, getting or receiving some kind of help or assistance, but make sure that you stay in touch with them and follow up with them time to time just to ensure that they're doing okay. So common mistakes to avoid when it comes to addressing bullying situations. So we should never tell youth to just ignore it. Just ignore it, it'll go away. Or don't, tell the person bullying how they feel, or make a joke out of the situation. Or just don't say, well, just don't let it bother you. If you don't let it bother you, then we won't have this problem. It is so important to make sure that we are validating what they are feeling and what they are experiencing. We also don't want to force youth involved. So that's both those that are being bullied and those that are doing the bullying, to work things out. And I've seen this a lot. You make them sit in a room with the adult and you make them sit face to face and talk it out. And then at the end, you make them shake hands and everything is hunky dory. That can actually risk for further victimization and to increase and worsen the bullying. We also don't want to blame youth for being bullied, even if they provoke the bullying. Like I mentioned before, it does not matter what a young person is doing or what they said. Nobody ever deserves to experience that. We should also not tell youth to physically fight back against the person bullying. It could get them hurt, suspended, or expelled. And so I do have a situation that actually happened with one of my students, and this is a good example. But I have a lot of youth that have told me that families told them, well, as long as you don't throw the first punch, you won't get in trouble at home. And so I had a student that was being bullied for quite a long time. And so the student had gone to the school about it, to the principal on numerous occasions. Nothing was ever really said or done about it. And the bullying got to a point where the person bullying my student would drive by their house and get on Snapchat and take a picture of my student's house and send it to them, so they knew that they were outside their house. They would go to their best friend's place of work, and take pictures of the friend's car. I mean, this went beyond, it was harassment and stalking at a certain point. So finally, my student is very protective of their family. And it got to a point where the person bullying them threatened to start messing with one of their younger sisters. And then the person bullying them told them that they, made threats that they were going to fight them. And so during school, my student and the person bullying them, they were going down opposite directions of the hall, and my student went up to the person bullying them and punched them, and started beating on them. And it got to a point that the student had to go to the hospital because she had a busted lip and had to get stitches. And because the person that bullied my student was so embarrassed by what happened, she decided to press charges. So as a result, my student got suspended from school, had to go to court, and was put on probation, and now has a record. And the person that has been bullying my student did not get suspended, did not get in any kind of legal trouble, and as a result got 10 days off of school to kind of recover from them getting assaulted. So again, we want to make sure that we are not encouraging them to fight back, because even though my student was the one being bullied, they were the ones that got real hurt in the end when it came to school and when it came to the law. Parents should also resist the urge to contact other parents involved. That can actually make the situation a whole lot worse. So school and other officials should act as the mediators between parents and guardians of the youth that are experiencing bullying and the ones who are bullying. So addressing bullying behavior. So if we see bullying behavior going on in schools, make sure that we're addressing the youth in a private location. Even though what they're doing is wrong and they should not be doing that, essentially, if we are calling them out in public in front of other students and yelling at them, essentially we're kind of being, we're kind of doing some of that bullying behavior ourselves because we're saying things that could be embarrassing or hurtful to them. So we want to make sure we're addressing this in a private situation and make sure the youth knows what their problem behavior is. Because like I had mentioned before, if a youth grew up in an environment that that's all they know and, they don't think that what they're doing is wrong, then that might be something that we need to address because they may feel that the behaviors that they're displaying isn't wrong. So we need to show the youth that bullying is taken very seriously. So if we are going to say, we take that seriously, then we need to make sure we're modeling that respectful behavior when we're addressing the problem. Work with youth to understand some of the reasons why they may be bullying other people. So are they trying to fit in? Are they having conflict or problems at home? Are they experiencing abuse? Are they stressed? Are they dealing with some type of mental health problem? Or have they been getting bullied as well? So involving the youth who bullied and making amends or repairing the situation. So I always say to do these, if you know the youth well enough, so maybe if it's, not face to face, but if it's having the person write up a letter apologizing, or if it's doing a good deed for the person who was bullying other people. And again, that is kind of a case by case situation. I would not say this is something we would, have all youth do, because like I had mentioned earlier, sometimes, if we force people to do those things, it could just make the situation a lot worse. So avoid strategies that have, these negative consequences. So when we look at how to address bullying situation, there are some strategies that we think are helpful, but may not necessarily be so. So for example, the zero tolerance policy or the 3 strikes you're out. Research has shown that those strategies do not work. Suspending and expelling youth who bully does not reduce the bullying behavior. If anything, they may come back to school and continue or even make the situation a lot worse. And then students and school faculty may be less likely to report and address bullying if suspension or expulsion is the consequence. And that could be for a number of reasons. So, school faculty may be less likely to report, especially if the person bullying is a star athlete in the school and doesn't want them to get in trouble and have to be benched off of games. Or maybe they are worried about retaliation from, other faculty members. And then again, students may not address it either because they may have that fear that they could be the next person that will be bullied. Conflict resolution and peer mediation. These technically do not work when it comes to addressing bullying. And especially with conflict resolution, bullying is not conflict between 2 people. It's not 2 people that have a disagreement. Bullying is when there's that unequal balance of power. And, when they share that equal blame. So it's definitely not a conflict. So conflict resolution will not be helpful. And then facing youth who have bullied, it may make them more upset. It could be traumatizing for them. It could, trigger them. So we want to make sure that we're cautious about, just sitting them in a room together and shaking hands. Bullying behaviors could increase or become more severe. And then also, they have also done research on group treatment. So they would have like these little group workshops for students that have been in trouble for bullying other people. And they found that those don't work and that it actually reinforces the bullying behavior in each other. So having people that are bullying other students come together to talk about why they're doing those things is not a helpful solution. So one thing that we can do or that can be done is there is the Ulvaeus Bullying Prevention Program. So this is a program that Marshall University received a grant to provide this program into schools for free. And so I'll talk about that here in a minute. But the Ulvaeus Bullying Prevention Program, it's a comprehensive approach and it includes every single person in that school. So there's a school-wide component, a classroom component, an individual, and a community component. So it addresses everybody. So everybody is like on the same page. It focuses on long-term change and it helps to create a more of a positive school climate. So it kind of helps students to be more respectful of one another. And, like they don't have to be best friends with everybody, but if they disagree or they don't necessarily like someone, they respect them by just keeping them themselves and not bullying them or calling them names or making threats. This program was designed and evaluated for use in all levels in school, so elementary, junior high school, and also high school. And the program goals, it reduces and prevents bullying problems among children, and it also improves that those peer relationships. So again, not everybody is best friends, and everybody is making friendship bracelets to one another, but they have respect for one another, or they just kind of keep their distance if they don't necessarily like that person. So as a result of this program, so it is evidence-based, and it's reduced bullying among youth, and it's improved the social climate in the classrooms, and it reduces related antisocial behavior such as vandalism and truancy. This program has been implemented in more than a dozen countries around the world, and it's in thousands of schools here in the United States. And so why the program works. So again, it focuses on the whole school environment. So we're just not picking and choosing those students that are experiencing the bullying to address it. We involve every single person in that school, including staff, faculty, volunteer members. So it addresses the bullying at the school. And so what they do is they provide assessments to all the students about their experiences of bullying in the school. Because we think that, if I work in the school, I know what's going on, but we may not always know exactly what's happening. So by allowing those youth to have a voice and say, this is what I'm experiencing or what I've seen being experienced, then that can really help us to understand what the real problem is at hand. So what they do is the schools form a group to support bullying prevention activities. And so the staff are trained in bullying prevention. And so they would be in connection with, so I had the opportunity to do the train the trainer. So I would be the one that would go into a school, and the school would form that support group, whether it's the school counselors, the principal, teachers, whatever staff or faculty want to be involved. Unfortunately, due to my schedule, I could not continue doing that. But that's kind of how it works. So you would have a trainer that would come to the school and provide a 2-day training for the support group that is interested. So all staff are trained in bullying prevention. Again, this isn't just the counselors or a certain select few of staff or faculty in the schools. This is everybody that works in the school. And it helps to establish and enforce school rules and policies related to bullying. So again, this really helps everybody to be on the same page on, how to address it, and, and what we can do when we see or a student comes and tells us that they are experiencing bullying. It involves youth on regular discussions about bullying. So when I had mentioned about, how to incorporate those everyday conversations with youth, asking them those questions about what does it look like to you? What are your experiences? That's what the Oveus prevention program does. So regardless of what a teacher teaches, if it's math, if it's language arts, if it's health, they all incorporate these discussions on bullying in every single class. It also helps to identify where bullying occurs and to increase adult supervision in those locations. There is a school that I go to that everybody knows if you want to fight somebody, you go to, the end of the East Hall under the stairwell, because there's never any adults in that area. So, it helps to identify where these situations are happening and to, keep it more monitored by staff and faculty. It also educates staff how to intervene consistently and appropriately in bullying situations. So again, everybody's on the same page. We don't have one person doing this and one person not doing this. Everybody is consistent on how they address it. And so when we have that consistency, then that's when the students know what those expectations are. It also provides ongoing support. So schools will continue to get support from their trainers through the Oveus bullying prevention program, and continue efforts over time. So if that is something that you are interested in, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that we were like at this slide already. If you are interested in any information or to get more information about the Old Vegas bullying prevention program, again, you can email me and I will give you the contact information of the two ladies at Marshall. Because again, I'm not sure how long this grant is for and what they have available, but it is something that I would definitely encourage people to at least get more information on. So these are just some crisis resources that are always good to have, not only for us as adults, but also for our youth. We have our crisis text line. So this offers free resources and it offers crisis support 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So a person can text the word home to 741-741. We have our suicide and crisis lifeline. So again, you can dial 988 or you could go to their website. Just like the crisis text line, they offer crisis support 24/7. They have lots of resources and information on suicide and other crisis situations. StopBullying.gov offers a lot of free resources and materials as well as support on bullying. So if you feel that this is something that your child or your school or whoever is struggling with, this has lots of great materials, as well as ways that you can work on addressing the issue. And then here in West Virginia, we have Help for WV. So they offer state resources and referrals for mental health and substance use. So if you were to contact them, you can let them know what the situation is, where the person lives, and they'll be able to provide you with the resources that are available or nearby. They also have online chat support where someone can chat with somebody in a crisis. And they also have phone and text support. And this is also 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So these are all of the resources that I use for my presentation. And again, these are all really great websites that offers lots of materials and information and education on bullying and suicide. So I would encourage you to check out some of those, if you are wanting to know more information. So lastly, if you ever have any questions, concerns, or whatever the case is, you're always more than welcome to reach out and email me. My email is down there at the bottom. I love helping people and linking them to anything that can be beneficial for them. Or if you want a copy of my slides, shoot me an email and I'll be more than happy to share those with you. And I will also give you permission to share that with whoever. I believe education is key. So I'm not stingy when it comes to, any presentations that I do. I'm like, please share it with everybody. That's all that I have. And so thank you all for joining us today. And if you are have children in school or you're working in a school, I'm really sorry. I can't believe summer's already over, but I hope everybody is off to a great school year. So thank you.
Thank you, Autumn. We appreciate you always. Everybody, I've tried to take down notes on everybody who's requested slides, but I think Becky has said that she's just going to send them out to everybody who registered. So along with your CEU certificate, you'll get a copy of the slideshow. And then I believe this webinar will also, I know it's being recorded. So a link to that should be posted on our website soon as well. So thank you everybody for joining us.
So we had, oh wait. Okay, so there was one question. It said, can stalking be a form of bullying? And yes, it can. So stalking can actually be a form of bullying, and it can also be a form of sexual violence. So yes. And actually, it's kind of funny that they asked that, because I had mentioned about the story with my student where the person bullying them, it got to a point where they were stalking them and harassing them. So yes, definitely.
Terrible. All right. Okay. Are there any more questions? No, looks like some people are starting to sign off. So
all right.
Thank you again.
Yes, thank you. You guys have a great rest of your day. Almost Friday.
Yay.
Yay.
Thanks, Autumn. Bye.